Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for that video. It's time for Naglesmann versus Enrique. It's time to debate, it's time to discuss, and we'll come to a conclusion at the end of the video, going part by part. Now, of course, I've spoken about Poch on this channel before, but it's time to get real. It's time to get realistic, because these are the two front runners. They're like Drogba and Anelka under Carlo Ancelotti. They are banging in the goals, and hopefully for us, they will sign on the dotted line. Before I even get into this, it's very important to premise that both of these guys right now, we would be lucky to have them. We would be extremely lucky to have them. If they are to put pen to paper in the position that we're in, and they have not been scared off by the nonsense and by the confusion and discombobulation that we have been operating under for the last God knows how long, then fair enough. Happy days. After everything that's happened in the last 12 months at this football club, I am more than happy to have either of these two talented managers signed. But of course, I have a slight preference, and I'll be discussing, we'll be debating and talking about this in the video. So let's start with Naglesmann. Now, of course, extremely young, only 35 years old, but that for some people is a con, but of course it has to be a pro in terms of what he's done up until this point in his career and the ceiling and the potential of this manager. Because to start your first managerial job at Hoffenheim, taking over mid-season in a relegation battle, and then he wins 7 out of 14 games to propel them out of the relegation zone and finish a point outside, and then to kick on from there and finish in 4th in your first full season, Champions League places, and then 3rd in your second full season, 2.5 seasons, 2 Champions League qualifications for a club like Hoffenheim. That's what put his name on the map. That's what put the hype on his name at such a young age, 28, 20, 29, to go and do what he did. That is ridiculous. So fair play, and it needs its credit. It needs its you know, it needs its stamp of approval of the talent that this guy has, and he's been linked with all the top jobs for this very reason. 40% win ratio there. That's a fantastic win ratio to have at a club like Hoffenheim, and he only goes to kick down more doors and better that at Leipzig in his next job by, again, this club were kind of used to being in those European places, but it's the semi-finals of the Champions League that he reached. That really caught the eye. Again, that's a massive overachievement for Leipzig to get through that group stage with Zenit, with Benfica, with Lyon, to then bypass Tottenham and Atletico Madrid in the knockouts, and eventually be knocked out to PSG, Thomas Tuchel's PSG. That's a big overachievement for a club like Leipzig to do that. Again, 2 seasons, lost in the cup final to Dortmund, but again, knocking on the door for the top jobs now with that success and with that, again, that ladder of improvement, constantly proving himself as he moves up the rankings in Germany. And then he obviously caps it all off with the biggest job of all, Germany, with Bayern Munich. And, you know, he won the league, he won the cup. Disappointing in the Champions League to get knocked out to Villarreal. But one thing, a 3-4-1-2, or, you know, maybe a 3-4-3, but he likes that 3 at the back. I remember in particular a game at Tottenham in the knockout stages, Ampadu playing in that back 3. I've said it before on this channel, Upamecano, you know, he had Konate as well, these defenders. He played the 3 at White Hart Lane. It was a fantastic performance. No, it's Tottenham Hotspur Stadium actually. It's a fantastic performance. So he does like that 3. At Bayern Munich, he played more with the 4-2-3-1, 4-2-2-2, sometimes a 3. But again, this guy uses a lot of formations. He's very flexible, but it's always the same approach in terms of that counter press, that Gegenpress. He wants to be very narrow in terms of he wants everybody in those central areas pressing the living daylights out of the opponent to win the ball as high up the pitch as possible. And he doesn't really want to use too much width in terms of, he's not really trying to use the wingers. Forsberg, you know, he's used plenty of players out in those wide areas, but they've always tucked inside and made it very congested and very suffocating for the opponent. Now, whether or not he continues to do that, if he was to come to the Premier League with his first job, I'd assume that he'd stick to the similar principles and the same type of, you know, things that have got him such success. But because he is so flexible with systems and formations, you can't really predict what he's going to do. He's very, very unpredictable, Nagelsmann, but we're going to get onto it. When we talk about the conclusions, the pros and the cons, that's the overall landscape of what he's done so far. Then we move, of course, to Enrique. And he is completely the opposite in terms of, he is very positional play. Not the Gegenpress. I mean, he'll press from the front, but it's positional play. It's Spanish football again, you know, with the peps and everything that he's taught to his students. And it's all about dominating, just pure domination. And we saw it with Spain. Some people didn't even like it. It was just too much possession. Not overly impressive stints, but it's the treble winning season at Barcelona that again catches everybody's eyes. Incredible performances, winning 2 La Ligas, winning the Champions League, like I said, the treble, the Super Copa, winning the Club World Cup, winning the Copa del Rey 3 times. It's impressive. The CV on that stint there with the top players of the Messis, the Neymars, the Suarez, getting that to gel and work. We've seen plenty of times before top players being put into a team and it not working, it not connecting. So you have to give credit there. Same way you have to give credit for Nagelsmann winning the Bundesliga. I know a lot of people say it's a given, but we've seen Dortmund win it before. We've seen, Klopp go and win that. So I never like to take credit away from managers just because they win a league they're expected to win. You still have to get it done. You still have to show that you can work with top players, and that's what Enrique's done. And he's very militarian in terms of he wants control. And we'll talk about it again in the conclusion, but this guy has worked with top players, and he played with the Rakitiches and the Iniestas. He sometimes played a 3, he not always playing the 4-3-3. I think that's his favoured formation, but he sometimes did play with a 3 or play with a 4-1-4-1. But he loves to have, Messi at the top of that diamond, and then Busquets at the bottom, the overlapping fullbacks, of course, as well. Alba on one side, and then, of course, Neymar and Suarez. Neymar coming in off that left-hand side, scoring a truckload of goals. The questions for a lot of people will be, can he implement that with lesser quality players in terms of whenever he's had the Celta Vigos, the Romas, even Spain, it's a very mixed bag. Spain got to the semi-finals of the Euros. That's a really good performance. But then in the World Cup, of course, knocked out in the round of 16 against Morocco. He leaves his jobs quite quickly. Both of these guys do. They leave their jobs. Well, one of them gets taken up by top teams. It's just a constant ladder upwards, but Enrique leaves his jobs. If he's not happy and it's not working, Roma he left, Celta Vigo he left, Barcelona he said, I've done enough now, 2 years, we've done all we can do, we move. Spain, managed to respond to a really tough situation in his personal life with his daughter being diagnosed with bone cancer, recovers from that situation with his family and comes back to come and manage the Spain team to the semi-finals. So a lot of resilience there, a lot of love for the game, and a guy that sticks to his principles and doesn't move from it. And I think formation-wise and setup-wise, you are much more likely to be able to predict what you're going to get from Enrique from a week-to-week basis than maybe you would with Nagelsmann. But has won a catalogue of trophies, both of them very, very successful in different ways. And like I said, Enrique loves to dominate possession, so he'll use his 3-man midfield to come and drop deep and pick up the ball and spray it about and whatnot, and have those diagonal runners coming in from the wide areas, and drop that striker into those half spaces to try and link up play as well as maybe a false 9. So Morata was used for Spain in that regard. So there's a lot going on there. Now let's talk about the conclusion. Let's get to the conclusion. So where do we go from here, right? Win ratios for Nagelsmann through the roof. 40% at Hoffenheim, 56% for Leipzig, and 71% for Bayern Munich. The win percentages for Enrique are not as impressive, obviously at Celta Vigo and at Roma in your 40% and your 37%, but at Barcelona a whopping 76%. This is where his recognition comes from. Pep has spoken highly of him, saying that his team was one of the most difficult teams to play against, alongside Klopp's team as well. Thiago and loads of players, Messi, have spoken glowingly of him. Nagelsmann, regardless of the falling out at Bayern Munich with senior players like Neuer, we've seen fallouts before with Tuchel. So that doesn't mean they're a bad manager, but can they deal with the egos? Can they deal with the player power, right? And that's where the pros and the cons will come in. First of all, with the players. If I'm to talk about who do I feel safer with, I would say Enrique, slightly, because of the fact that in terms of managing those egos and managing those big names, I feel like Enrique is more likely to be able to handle those situations better than a Nagelsmann, because of course, the fact that we've just seen a little bit of a fallout, and of course we've seen Enrique, handle the Messis and handle the big names, the PKs, etc. And leave out massive exclusions in that Spain team as well, and have no problem doing so. Very, very, very clear on what he wants with his principles, and he's not straying away from it, leaving De Gea out of the squad, going with Simon and things like that. Now, age, people talk about age, will that be a factor in terms of, respect, gaining and grafting respect from the squad? Again, I feel safer with Enrique on a respect side of things because of who he's managed and the quality of the players that he's taken, charge of, and who he's dealt with and what he's won. But Nagelsmann has gained a lot of respect with the hierarchy and the board. So that will give him a lot of power. Having previously worked with Christopher Vivell, that already makes him the favourite for this job and makes his standing in that consortium or that group, that collaboration, a lot stronger than an Enrique. Enrique, despite having more, I think, control over maybe players, he may not have the same connection with the board, and that may make his overall standing not as strong as Nagelsmann. It might make his standing a bit weaker. There might be more clashes. I spoke about these two managers not really staying at clubs for very long. Nagelsmann mainly because he's been hired and appointed by better clubs as he's gone along the way and proved his point on the ladder, up, whereas Enrique struggled with lower jobs with lesser players. And that's what another concern people will have is, can Enrique work with those players that aren't the Messis, aren't the Neymars, aren't the Suarez's? Can he get a Spain a team with a Fernan Torres, etc., the same way and working in the Premier League at the highest level? And we obviously don't have those level of forwards, but will he be able to work with the board and be cohesive with them? Some people don't want a manager who will completely fit into the board model because at the moment the board are very shaky in terms of, do they know what they're doing completely, with the hirings of Potter and Lampard, and do we not want someone to go in there and really shake them and say, listen, this is how we're going to run things and this is how I want to do things and you need to listen to me because I'm the expert here? Or do we want someone who fits into what they want more? This is the question, this is the collaboration, this is the conversation. So players, player power, dealing with that. More safe with Enrique, but Nagelsmann stronger standing with the board. And recruitment-wise, maybe Nagelsmann more in line with the Vivells because of previous experience working with them, whereas Enrique may be completely different. Wants a certain type of player. Can you scout and do you understand what I want? Can you go and get it? We'll see. But Nagelsmann's worked with the sporting directors before, and technical directors. And then we get to, of course, the players in terms of who fits and who doesn't. I think our squad is so big that both managers can take players from both of our 35-man squad. They'll take a bit of player from here, some players from there, and both of them will be able to put together an 11 that suits them because we have so many players. I think Enrique would probably prefer the covers, and then Nagelsmann will clearly prefer working with some Nkuku because of course he's already used him before. He plays this two striker system. Enrique plays with wingers, so Madueke and Mudryk could thrive, whereas Nagelsmann doesn't use wingers as much and he's very narrow, so that's quite concentrated, and he probably the second strikers will thrive there in that situation. So it's a to and fro. It's like I said, we have so many players that I think both managers could pick players from our squad that would work and wouldn't work, and I don't know how it would add up, but I'd say it'd be fairly even. We're not exactly clear in the direction we're going with the players. We have too many players, but we're going young. That's all we know, is we're going young with high potential. So then we go to, like I said, the board. It's pretty clear that according to reports and just common sense, they're more favouring Nagelsmann because of previous existing working relationships. Seems like Egbali and Todd Boehly maybe favour Enrique. Now, I'd be a hypocrite to say that I don't want them to listen to the footballing people, which is Nagelsmann. So I'm not gonna say that. But then people will feel like maybe Christopher Vivell will not give the time of day needed to an Enrique and consider him as much as they should because of that connection and that previous working relationship with Nagelsmann. So, again, we'll never know. But that is a concern or a question that people will have with either way we go. You should have listened to the directors that you hired, or they're favouring the person they've worked with and not potentially the person that's best for the job. Again, we'll have to see. And then we go to the fans. It seems like the fans are slightly leaning more towards Enrique. And again, it's not just about dealing with the players, like I said, the egos, but also it's about, just put it frankly, Enrique is a safer option for a lot of people because he doesn't switch system as much. Now, he does play with the formation a bit. He's like a Pep. He will use a different back four formation, or he'll play with a 3 even and put a diamond midfield and put Messi at the tip of that with a Suarez, Neymar front 2 and a Busquets in the hole, in the sit-in position. But he will play with it, but you just know what Enrique's going to do. He's so stubborn, his positional play or nothing, and he'll just play that way and he'll not play any other way, and you know that. Whereas Nagelsmann is so adaptable, so flexible. For a lot of people, it does feel like what we've come from with Potter. Not that they're in the same stratosphere or world at all in terms of achievements, but at least, you know, he's very flexible. He'll switch systems and he'll be very unpredictable. And people right now are running from unpredictability because we've just had a lot of that. We couldn't predict the team from week to week. So people don't want that. Now people want a lot of stability. When you have a bad relationship, you tend to want the complete opposite to what you've just come from, and that's understandable. So I think Enrique is safer for a lot of people. In terms of experience, if we're talking about experience between the two coaches, Nagelsmann has managed for club football-wise 6.5 seasons, right? 2.5 seasons at Hoffenheim, 2 seasons at Leipzig, and 2 seasons at Bayern before being sacked, or, you know, nearly 2 seasons. Enrique is only 5 seasons. 1 at Roma, 1 at Celta Vigo, and 3 at Barcelona. So club football-wise, Nagelsmann actually has more experience if you're talking about that. Obviously, Enrique's older, and he has a much better playing career in terms of what he's done as a player. Nagelsmann retired at 20 due to injuries, I believe. Obviously, if you add Enrique's, you know, what he done with the country, with Spain, that amount of his time with them, you know, that makes it a lot easier for him. But obviously I put an asterisk next to, you know, national, working with a nation, because you're only seeing them for short spells. It's very condensed. You don't see them for most of the year, and, you know, it's just completely different football in terms of the tempo and etc. So I tried to put an asterisk next to international football, personally. So the conclusion is it's very even. It's not easy to split. Like I said at the start of the video, either way, whichever way we go, we're very blessed to be able to have them even knocking on the door. I know we're a big club, but we're in a horrendous position. And to be honest, it's a position that would scare a lot of people off. The amount of players we have, the lack of direction with the board and their interference potentially. So it's a situation that a lot of people would run from, or just wait. Because let's not forget, both of these guys will be targeted by PSG, or Enrique will be, and Nagelsmann will be targeted, I'm sure, by PSG and Real Madrid. So they could wait till the summer and probably find other clubs that are just as ambitious as us, with just as much money, if not more. So we have to be very snappy, and that's why I keep saying we're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing us. And we need to get pen to paper as soon as possible before things go left and before they come to their senses. I have a slight preference to Enrique for the reasons that I've given in terms of the safety aspect. I guess I'm scared, right? PTSD. I have a feeling deep down inside me that the bust potential with Nagelsmann is just a little bit higher. Not due to his coaching. I think it's very clear that he's a very, very good coach. He's got the statistics to prove it, what he's done, not just what he's won, but what he's actually achieved at a very young age at these different clubs. And his trajectory with working with lesser players is actually a lot better than Enrique. Enrique has struggled to work with those lesser clubs. So he's actually shown a lot of really, really exciting things. And I'd be happy if he came in. But I just feel like outside of the coaching, there's the respect and there's the dynamics of egos and dealing with the dressing room. And to be honest, either of these guys could not have a long-term stint here. It could only be 2 years. That's on average what they do, 2 years, 2.5 max. But with the dressing room and the dynamics and just walking into a room and commanding immediate respect, I just feel like Enrique has that over him a little bit. And of course, the stability of just knowing exactly how Enrique is going to play with the positional play. We know that Nagelsmann is going to do the Gegenpress. He's going to be narrow. But he might switch things up. He's young. He's coming to the Premier League for the first time. Both of them are. But I think Enrique is just so stubborn. He's so stubborn. It doesn't matter where he is, where in the world, whatever club, whatever team level, he'll play the same way. And that maybe works against him with lesser players. Maybe he needs to calm it down a little bit. Nagelsmann, he likes to change things up. And that scares me. I'm not going to lie. It scares me a little bit. The flexibility is great. Adapting to opponents, or opponents having to adapt to you, or not being able to guess what you're going to do, can be a pro, but it can be a con, especially if you're like we are. We have no chemistry. We have no understanding of what we're trying to do. We play a lot of games. Maybe next year we won't be playing a lot of games. We only have 1 game a week. I think that will help Nagelsmann if he wants to implement many systems, many different tactics. He might be able to, you know, do that with less games. Enrique, like I said, it's just clear exactly what he's going to try and do. He commands respect immediately through the door. And I think the fans, funnily enough, will probably give Enrique more time, whereas I can see them snapping on Nagelsmann for silly things a lot faster. But the board will probably give Nagelsmann more time because they actually have already got people in there who have worked with him before, and Enrique will probably have a little bit less stock. I don't know. It's a weird one, but I'm favoring Enrique slightly. But you let me know in the comments down below, who do you favor? Who do you prefer? Both of them are great options. We need to get one of them done immediately, as soon as possible. We'll see what happens. But big up your damn selves. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash up the likes. And I'll see you guys next time. In a bit, people. Peace.